I would like to wave a magic wand and develop instant expertise with speaking on video. Um, so if there's expertise in doing videos, fairy around, hit me with your fairy stick. It sounds really weird. Anyway, um, I didn't want to talk about fairies. I wanted to talk about fear. Fear, 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 fear. We're coming up to Halloween, and people are enjoying fear, which is a very, very weird thing that we do. People that like horror movies, people that like Game of Thrones. I can't get my head around that being a natural state of the human being. I know that some people, when they experience fear, right afterwards they experience relief. So they get themselves sort of chemically hardwired or neurologically hardwired to go for the relief, but they like to fight for the same reason because afterwards they release endorphins or something. But I can't imagine that that's what our state is meant to be, that's natural to us. It's weird. Fear season. And here we are in the fear years of the human race, while all the poo poo and caca is surfacing to be healed, ostensibly. I hope that's what it's doing. I hope that's why it's surfacing. Um, you turn on the news and the ticker tape with all the statistics of people who've died and who are dying, and we have to be feared of these people and those people and whatever. So if the news was a person, you would not let that person in your house. You'd be like, "Bitch, you crazy? Stay away from me." Um, but that's kind of what impulsed me to want to do this little video because I had this kind of a dream last night, which reminded me that when I was in my early 20s, which is no longer the case, I used to have recurring dreams in which I would find cats in distress and I would bring them home and try to make them well. And these cats were not always right. They sometimes didn't even look like cats, but I knew they were cats. And I'm very, very empathic towards animals in general, but maybe especially cats, and I had cats. And so just imagine you see an animal have a car crash, and that emotional response that you have, it's kind of a mix of horror and adrenal excitement and an outrushing of empathy. And it's a pretty awful, very, very heightened experience. And I used to have that on the regular. Like I'm talking about almost every single night for many, many years. And then at a certain point in time, I came to believe that I was being stimulated to that emotional response by the use of something that the stimulators were aware of that I had an empathic response toward, which is cats, to try to get me to leak energy. That something was literally feeding off of my energy and taking an image imperfectly to make me have that empathic response. And I know just how loony that might sound to some people. And here we have to talk about how people perceive reality. And a lot of people perceive it just what you see. What you see is what you get. The news, that's reality. And it's not reality for me. I've always been a bit psychic, a little bit empathic, a little bit more empathic than maybe some other people, maybe a little thin-skinned. And definitely there is or can be a correlation between people who perceive extrasensorily and people who are mentally compromised. That can certainly be the case. And I think that the correlation is that thin-skinnedness and having actual rips and tears in your energy field can be a little bit alike. People who've done a bunch of drugs, they can get rips and tears in their energy fields. People who are suffering from schizophrenia, I mean, I don't know. I do sometimes perceive auras, but I don't always, and I don't have the sight to be able to tell somebody that. But years later, I told my buddy about the weird cats, because there was a certain point in time that I was speaking of where I just put the brakes on it, and anytime a weird cat would get into an accident or show up at my door bedraggled and wet and bleeding, I would be like, no, I'm not accepting this energy. And I would literally shift my dream. I would shift onto another track. And sometimes I would actually have to forcibly wake myself up and come back into the waking world to get away from it. And then I found myself kind of just getting pissed at having my emotions fucked with, yeah. So I put a stop to it. I put a hard stop to it, and then years and years later, I told my best friend about it. I kept it to myself, and this is why I sometimes think that everybody has these experiences, must have these experiences, these kind of like side door things, but that you relegate to, they either I bring them to the front of your mind, they're kind of peripheral vision things, or you just dismiss them, or you just like, I'm so crazy, whatever. But I told my buddy, and my buddy had the exact same experience, and also with cats that didn't appear quite right, and also had this facet of the experience, which was that often for him, prior to seeing the cat, he would feel it on the bed with him, and I had that experience as well. He would feel it like walking across the kind of the dips in the bed, or sometimes touching the body, 4 paws, do. Yeah, so that shit is fucking weird. But I'm thinking it might not be uncommon. And one of the reasons I think it might not be uncommon was because I was in studio one day and I heard a woman tell basically that same story, except about children. Now, she was someone who had children, and so perhaps her wiring in that regard is stronger than mine, because I've never had children. But it could easily be that. If that's something that you're empathic towards, that might be a way that you can be stimulated to leak energy. And to go all the way back to talking about the news, people's fear for their own survival notwithstanding, when it then shifts to your child is going to school and there's thing there, and there's this person who is maybe not had a thing there, when you're in survival, your defense system is up. And another word for your defense system is your ego. And one of the ways that your ego protects you is to get very ussy-themy with people. And if there's one thing that we don't need in today's world, it's ussy-theminess. We need ussy-ussiness and respecty differenciness. And I do find myself really, really having trouble speaking to people who see things in a very just what's on the news and just a very, very 3D perspective. So anyway, I just kind of wanted to share that. It's a little, if you want it, spooky for the spooky season. But there are things out there. There are a lot of things that we don't know what they are. We are asleep for, I don't know what it is. Is it half our lives? But we're not gone. And we have so much company that we don't see. And some of us do see some of it. And I'm one of those someones. Anyway, lots of love to you. Ussy, ussy. Ussy, ussy, darlings. Ussy, ussies. All right, bye.